I created this video to share with you how do you keep your stories short, yet not take away from the impact. The first thing I'll say here is that for you to keep your story short, you need to first become familiar with the stories that you're telling. I mean, the ability to make a story short and succinct, it's actually a skill and it's not easy. Mark Twain once said, "I didn't have time to write a short letter, so I wrote a long one instead." The ability to distill a story down to its most critical elements is hard. And you need to experience telling the story often. And with that experience, you'll be able to discover which part of the stories are most critical. For example, you'll see this video of mine on stage. I share a story about how we came up with a name for my son. And you'll see me telling this story, and it takes me quite a while to tell this story on stage. It's the longer version. So I want you to check this out. Check this story out. Yay! First time dad. And I do have to share something with you. I remember when we were thinking of, well, what name are we going to come up with for my son? And we finally came up with a name, and the name was Axel. And I thought, oh, this is a lovely name. But we had to check with my father-in-law. And my father-in-law lives in Malaysia. So I remember us flying to Malaysia 6 months before he was born. And we asked my father-in-law, we said, "Dad, what do you think of the name? We'd love your permission for the name Axel." And he's from Malaysia, so he's got a bit of an accent. So he says, he goes, "Okay, not bad. How do I say?" And I'm like, "Axel, Dad." And he goes, "Okay, the axe hole." No, you a bad boy. No bum hole. So for her, Axel became asshole. And no, we didn't actually name my son, we didn't name him Axel, we named him Xander. Just so you know, Xander. My father-in-law ruined that name. Every time I see the name Axel now, I literally look at it and it literally looks like asshole. So to me, I can't tell the difference anymore. That's why we named my son Xander. So thanks for that, Dad. Totally ruined the name. But you see, with that example of me telling that story on stage, I was able to tell that story in a couple of minutes. Now I want to share with you a version of me telling a client this same story, except when I'm telling them over the phone, I told it in about 15, 20 seconds at most. And the only reason I've been able to shorten that story down to its bare minimum elements is because I've had experience telling this story and I know which bits are the crucial bits. So check out this particular one, and I think you'll find this, again, just as hilarious. And just listen to my clients on the call. Listen to them.
Just before you go, I'll tell you something funny. We're going to name my son, we're thinking of Axel. And I like that name, but then my father-in-law is Malaysian, and he was pronouncing it, and he was pronouncing it as Axhole, no, bad name, bad. And he totally ruined the name. He ruined the name. Oh, I can't name my son that name now.
They weren't able to stop laughing. They loved it. And I love this particular story as well. And I just want you to remember that it takes time and experience to be able to tell stories in a shorter format. Don't hold yourself to that level of expectation. It takes time to develop this skill. While you're writing and documenting your stories, a quick tip here, don't try to edit them as you're writing. The writing process and the edit process are two different processes. So make sure while you're writing the story, just write, don't try to shorten it. I want to share with you a few extra tips that you can use to help you shorten your stories. The first one, cut out unnecessary adverbs. These are the ly words. Replace them with the strong words. For example, instead of saying, "We are fairly confident that our product will most likely help you," change this to, "We are confident that our product will help you." Notice how I got rid of the ly words? The second thing you can do, reduce the number of backstories. They may not be necessary. Try telling them without as much context. 3, reduce the number of characters in your story. 4, reduce the character description. Don't take too long to describe the characters. 5, reduce the scope or time frame of your story. Instead of talking about something that happened over 3 years, share the moment of transformation, the most powerful moment. Keep these 5 tips in mind because they're going to help you begin the process of being able to shorten your stories. Here's a really cool psychological tip as well. If you're still feeling a little bit antsy about sharing stories, there's a really cool sentence you can use right at the beginning of your storytelling process. And it calms you down and it relaxes the audience as well. You say the words, "Before we start." Because when you say the words before we start or before I start, it tricks your brain into thinking, well, you haven't started yet, so it's all good. Of course you've got time to share a story. And then also it disarms the audience too, because the audience is like, oh, it's okay for him to share a story. He hasn't started yet. So it's a psychological line that's powerful for both you and the audience. I mean, look at me, I use this on stage all the time. Check it out. Before we start, I've just become a dad. Okay, so before I actually begin, I hope you find these helpful for you to be able to shorten your stories. And that last tip of the before we start, you can use that to help reduce the level of anxiety that you feel, the level of nerves, and also put the audience at ease that you're going to get to the content. But before we start, let's start with a little bit of connection.